Welcome to Scare Confident. I'm your host, Tiffany Souter. I have a friend that's going through one of those seasons in life and business where like everything is super hard. And I think whenever you watch somebody close to you go through a season like that, you can't help but call up and remember your own moments when you practically felt like a fool for having worked so hard towards what suddenly felt like it was just a dead end. And 2018 was that year for me. Literally everything broke in the most extreme way. And I remember just being like, I'm just an idiot. Like, I'm an idiot for having dreamed. I'm an idiot for having believed I could do this. I'm an idiot for working so hard. I'm an idiot for taking so much risk. I'm an idiot for just like believing I could be one of the ones that was like not a statistic of just being a casualty of somebody wanting to start a small business. And it was a really, really, really hard time. And as I was sitting in her story and pain and reflecting on my own, there were 4 pieces of advice that I offered up that I thought, maybe I'll just go ahead and record a podcast about it too, because maybe you're in a season where everything is hard, everything is breaking, and secretly you feel like a fool for having believed that you could do something special and that you were something special and that there was something special in you that the world needed to see. So these are my 4 pieces of advice, and I'll add a little bit of color to them. I don't know if it's even advice. It's like the letter to myself in 2018. This is what I wished I would have known, or what I would go back and tell myself is coming. So the first one is that patience is your friend. Patience is your friend, and it's going to take longer than you think to fix your problems. But fixing it right is going to give you everything you want. And fixing it quickly will only delay the eventual timeline of needing to fix it right. Fixing it quickly will only delay the eventual timeline that will only start when you fix it right. When you're in pain and you're in this like vulnerable state, it can feel like I just want this pain to go away quickly. I want to make a magic hire. I need to get a great big client. There's like this triage that yes needs to happen to stop the bleeding, but in your desire to make the pain go away, you can try to fix it too quickly instead of realizing like there are a lot of layers and a lot of consequences and a lot of things that are going to need to be fixed for the thing I want, the thing I need to actually be redeemed. So for me, I was working my face off. I needed a financial return for my risk and my time that I was not getting. I needed more availability for my family that I did not have. I needed more flexibility. There were things that I needed in my life that were not sustainable for me in what was happening in that season of my life. And I wanted all of those things in 90 days or less to come true. It took like 3 years, maybe 3.5 years, because it was like we had this really, really tough season in the business. We made a lot of really, really hard decisions. And then bam, COVID came. And just as I was like thinking I was going to get my breath, we had a baby and COVID hit. And it was like anything but getting my breath. And so there was another 12 to 18 months of like just working really hard and being really, really, really tired, but beginning to see some increments of progress towards the right people being in place, the right decisions being in place, the right strategy being in place, pulling back on my time in some areas so that it was more sustainable. So patience is your friend. When you're a high achiever and you are used to getting quick success and you are used to being the results not typical person on the field, which I feel that so strongly, the idea of being patient feels ridiculous when you're in pain. And 3 years, when I say that out loud, sounds long when you're in pain, but is actually short in the grand scheme of your life when it comes to like getting things to a completely new place, a completely new level of functioning. It's actually not that long. So that's the first one. Patience is your friend. It's going to take longer than you think to fix it. That doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. This is not a place where one big Band-Aid, one big hire. If it was simple, you would have solved it a long time ago. It's complex and there's a lot of little things that need to be solved. I remember, I don't know actually if she's a good leader or not, but I remember Meg Whitman, like 1,000 years ago, was hired to, I think, turn around HP it was. Okay, so like how long ago this quote was. And when she was hired, analysts and stuff were like, yeah, how long is it going to take you to like turn this thing around and fix it? And she's like, if it was one or two big things, they would have already found it. It's 100 small things that need to be changed for this organization to get back on track. And I remember reading that, and I was probably in my early 20s, and I was like, oh, geez, that sounds so overwhelming. What a terrible job. But that's how it is. When you're creating massive change, it takes patience. So that does not mean sit in the pain and let it just boil. You need to see incremental progress along the way, or you're not moving in the right direction. But patience is your friend. That's the first one. The second is that gut instinct is still your superpower. Again, when you're in these moments of pain, you can lose your confidence so quickly, or at least I did. So when you lose your confidence, you're sort of like, what do I fall back on? I've never seen these problems before. If I knew what to do, I'd already be doing it. If I had the right people in place, we wouldn't be here. If I was the right person for the job, we wouldn't be so screwed. It's like, where do I start? And so the second one is your gut instinct is still your superpower. Don't ignore it. Yes, you're solving problems that you've never seen before, but your gut about people and problems will continue to serve you. And when you're in this place of like extreme insecurity, you cannot call up your instincts. That like gut that has led you along the way is still your friend. So it's this teeter-totter between surrounding yourself with people who have been there before, asking questions of people who have seen bigger fields than you, who have solved bigger problems, who have led bigger organizations, who have closed bigger deals, whatever it is. Yes, you have to get knowledge from people who have been in this war before. But your gut, your culture, your rudder is still relevant in this situation because there is not just one right way to do this business thing that a lot of us are trying to do. So your gut instinct is still your superpower. Don't turn it off. Yes, you might be in a jam. Yes, you might feel like you've got some issues on your hands, but go back and trust your gut. For me, it's always served me very, very well, especially when it comes to people. I just have a sense about things. So your gut instinct is still your superpower. Okay, the third one is your dreams are not irrelevant. Being a present mom, an accomplished businesswoman, a respected person in the community, a passionate marriage, these are all possible simultaneously. But the tools you have may not be the ones to get you there. So the tip I have is you've got to change your tools, not your dream. When my marriage was a mess, when my business was a mess, when my time, I was reacting in every possible orifice of responsibility. I didn't feel like I was as present as I wanted to be for my kids. I felt like I was reacting to my own health. I had a moment, more than one moment, lots of moments where it was like, what do I have to give back to life? What do I have to not say yes to? What has to be an or for me to be able to feel like my life is sustainable? I didn't want there to be ors. I wanted to live this life of and. That's like the premise of this whole crazy show. And a life of and requires you to continue to level up the toolbox that you have to manage your time, to manage yourself, to be proactive, to manage your home, to communicate with people that you love, to set priorities, to understand your values, to look ahead and understand what the season of life requires. That is how you change your tools and not give back your dreams. And I think in this like midlife stage of living where you've committed to jobs, you've committed to mortgages, you've committed to kids, you've committed to communities, you've committed to churches, you've committed to all these things, we can get to the place where we're so overwhelmed that what we do is we give back a dream. And we don't have the humility to step back and say, I just don't have the toolbox to grant that life to myself yet. I have got to level up the way I am doing life, not level down my expectations of life. And it's hard both ways. It's hard to give back dreams and it's hard to level up your toolbox. But like that for me was a huge unlock. That is how you live a life of and, is that you constantly stay in the game and level up your toolbox and not give up your dreams. So do they happen all at the same time? Absolutely not. Can you do 100% of the things 100% of the way well every single day of the year? No, you can't. It takes progress. It takes intention. It takes rabid prioritization. It takes all of those things. but change the tools, not the dream. And I lived for a while in this moment of like, I'm so overwhelmed and I'm so tired and I'm so defeated. I don't know how to get back on top of life without giving it back all the things that I think I want. And so do I have to decide to be a mom or have this business? Do I have to decide to just have element 3 or be able to invest in other people and ideas and leaders that I believe in? Like, can I do both of those things? And now I like tell myself, I don't have the tools yet to be able to do that. But once I've learned them, then I can step into that. So change the tools, not the dream. The last thing I'll talk about may not be relevant to everybody listening, but some of you it may. When you're in a place of pain in your business, it can also be an option to take on other people's money to help you out of that pain. You know, maybe you're in a financial hole, maybe you need a partner, maybe you need to hire and you can't afford them. And I took a look at that a couple of times about what would it look like to bring on a financial partner to help us get out of the season that we were in. And we ultimately have decided to remain independent and to not do that. Again, that can be a right choice for people. And who knows, someday that might be a right choice for us, but it's not on the horizon right now for sure. But a reminder that other people's money comes with other people's plans, other people's pressures, other people's expectations. And that's a very expensive thing to give up. And again, not to say you never should, but really, really thinking through that thoroughly, because that is a long-term choice to say, I have a short-term problem that feels very financial. If I get this big check or I relieve this financial pressure of the business, then that at least takes care of that. But you do inherit a new problem or a new problemtunity because you've got other people's plans, other people's pressures, other people's returns, other people's expectations that have to be fulfilled. And I think I'm mostly unemployable at this point in my life. I value independence a lot. I like to be able to decide what growth rate is right for the business. I like to be able to decide how long we want to give talent to be able to get up to speed and be successful. I like to be able to decide if there's a quarter that we want to eat into our margin to make a big investment in a marketing strategy that we're trying. I want to be able to make those choices. And so remaining independent and not taking on somebody else's money and therefore their expectations and their returns has been I would say, an anchored part of our strategy. There were seasons where that was very confusing to me. I didn't know what the right thing was. And my near-term pains were so great that taking on somebody's money would have felt like a life raft, but I would have been giving up a lot in exchange for that. Again, this is not to tell you what the right decision is for you, but it is to say, in anything in life, sometimes the short-term pain can get us into long-term payoff, a long-term contract that we may not want to fully fulfill. I think that's the right way to say it. A short-term fix can sometimes turn into a long-term contract that we don't necessarily want to fulfill, or we didn't understand the impact of what it would take to totally fulfill that. So just some encouragement. If you're in a season where things are just hard, they're very, very, very hard. I see you. I hear you. Be patient. Trust your gut. Level up your tools. And make sure that you're making decisions today that are aligned with long-term where you want to be, where you want to go, and what you want your life to look like. So it's going to be really important. I shared my story. Some of you listening joined when I talked last year at a big conference for small and mid-sized businesses at the EOS conference. We'll also put a link in show notes if you want a little more, I'd say like upfront look at the story of 2018 and how we, all of us came back from that. There's more, I'd say, insights inside of that presentation. If you have an interest in looking at it, it's on YouTube, and we'll provide a link in this episode as well. But hang in there. It doesn't persist forever, but make sure that you see incremental progress on what you're moving towards. And if you don't know what you're moving towards, start there. Figure that out. Thanks for listening. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Scared Confident. Until next time, keep telling fear. You will not decide what happens in my life. I will.